Welcome, everyone. We are live for the Two Nutter podcast, coming at you under a new platform we're trying out. So we've rebelled against the system. Our usual provider has decided to shaft us in terms of hiking the prices up to double. So we are attempting to find a solution. So bear with us if there's some technical glitches. But joining me tonight, we're going to have a quick check ahead to the postponed Wimbledon game, our future fate if we do manage to beat them in the Carabao Cup, and obviously the Man City game on Saturday. Joining me tonight is Lee. How you doing, Lee?
Good, mate. Getting the grasps with the new interface here. It's a little bit
Yeah.
chunky already, isn't it? But
Yeah.
otherwise, fine. How you going, mate?
No, I'm doing all right. I was sort of first time back in the land of the living for 2 weeks, so to speak. Ankle surgery, and I've got my moon boot on now, so I can go up and downstairs,
Nice.
which is very liberating. But I'm still a little bit uncoordinated on my crutches, so we'll see how we go. I've got to get back upstairs, and I'm not on the alcohol yet. And I'm not on the strong painkillers, so hopefully my coordination will be fine. Just a quick note before we start things off: we've actually signed up for an account on Telegram, which is an app-based chat program, similar to kind of WhatsApp. We've set up our own group. If you have a look up in the top left-hand corner of our YouTube stream, there is a QR code. So if anyone does fancy joining us for some sensible chat, some less than doom and gloom, although at the moment it is a little bit hard
No
to
guarantees.
not guaranteed, depending on results, obviously. But yeah, hit that up, come along, have a chat to us, and see how we go on. We're going to try that out for a while and see how it goes for us. So obviously, give us the feedback on that if you like it and want to come in. There's a few of us in there already from around Australia and everything, so it'll be good to see. But look, on to the postponed game that caused a bit of a kerfuffle on social media. The Wimbledon game that was meant to be getting played down in London, they got rained out. The weather played havoc with their pitch. It looked more like a golf course with some nice little bunkers around in the corner. Not something that was going to be very conducive to a good game of football, so to speak. Looks like there's a fair bit of damage. There was no way that was getting played. So they have actually cancelled that game down in London. They have arranged for it to be played at St James's Park instead. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen at such short notice, so it is going to be played next week now. Not ideal for certain YouTubers who have gone down to London and didn't seem very happy. Now I know Adam Pearson's been on the pod before, so I'll not take the piss out of him too much. But he may have overstepped the mark a few bits and pieces with a few fans. But look, it's no harm, no foul. Look, what's your view on how the hell that happened in terms of the actual pitch itself, though?
I think I read somewhere that 100,000 was it mil or something like that worth of rain had come down in a short period of time. So, like, I mean, whatever that number was that I saw, it was obviously substantial. We've been in Australia for a while, and I kind of forget what rain looks like a lot of times. And this isn't meant to be like some kind of casual brag here, but being in Queensland, when both of us are not down in Melbourne or anywhere, but in Queensland, usually don't get that much rain. So it's hard.
I know your memory's a little bit sort of shut down again, but you do remember the massive floods we had like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, no, but it's like that's it though. It comes every 10 years, kind of thing, doesn't it? Those
True.
sort of things.
Makes up for when it
So
happens.
it's a little bit hard to grasp just that amount of rain that must have come down in such a short amount of time. I wasn't sure what was going on when it first got announced, because obviously it was announced pretty late in the day. And I was thinking, well, surely this isn't going to be, it can't be that bad. I mean, is this just Wimbledon trying to get out of it because of whatever reason, injuries or something? I don't know what was going on, but I was thinking, surely to find out about it this close to the game, it seems like it maybe they're kind of trying to pull a fast one. And when you first saw the pictures coming through, initially I wasn't even sure what I was looking at, because I was looking at it thinking, well, someone's just put some carpet on the end of the field there, because it's all rolled up like a lump of carpet. And then I kind of realized that it was sand, and I was thinking, is it normal to have sand on the pitches? I'm sure it is. I don't know.
Sprinkled some on to kind of like soak up some moisture or something.
Yeah, maybe. And then I saw some images afterwards, and it was like mad. Like like a large part of that pitch were knackered.
Yeah.
And then I heard that I think it was the day after the game, or late in the day yesterday. Maybe it was probably late in the day yesterday, that the changing rooms were still underwater. some of the admin offices were underwater and various other places. So any thought of it being not legit pretty much disappeared out of my mind pretty quickly then. And then you kind of think, well, how the hell are they going to play their games? I mean, obviously this isn't our concern. Wimbledon isn't our concern, but Wimbledon's a very old club. At least it is to me, because I remember them being in the big time quite a lot when I was young and getting the Platini stickers, and there was always Wimbledon in there, John Fashanu and stuff, I think. And it's a team that you kind of recognize when you hear it. And obviously they went through the mill a lot lately with MK Don's separation, all that kind of stuff. But you kind of feel a little bit bad for them. You want them to be able to get back on their feet and get rocking. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how they're going to meet their obligations. If they can't meet the obligations, isn't it like penalties? Don't leagues impose penalties if you can't actually meet your obligations?
You would think so, but I mean, it's going to be pretty harsh if it's literally just an act of God and then suddenly the pitch is not playable. I mean, this isn't like, well, we didn't have adequate drainage and it's like we've got a puddle in the corner flag. It's like something's seriously gone wrong with that pitch. So, you would like to think that they'll go, well, look, we'll just rearrange your fixtures, your home fixtures for a bit, or maybe they can go and do a ground share at someone else's ground for a few games. It's not like there's a shortage of grounds in London for them to go to, so there's options there for them. There was someone on the chat earlier, I think, was suggesting 150 grand or something, 250 grand for a potential full pitch redo, because it's not just the grass, it's not just the soil, it's all the undersoil heating, it's all of the drainage, it's all the rest of the stuff.
Changing rooms.
So the changing rooms. So it could be a pretty hefty kind of repair bill for them. One thing that I think really did shine quite a nice light on the Newcastle fans is someone actually set up a GoFundMe for them. They wanted to raise some money to help towards the repair bill. The club themselves, Newcastle, have actually put in £15,000, and I think they were up to about 40,000 or something, and I think they were looking to get about 50k. That's huge generosity for, it's nice to see that not all of the Premier League clubs and not all of the Premier League fans have lost touch with the reality of non-league football. And, as you said, Wimbledon's got a bit of history about it. They've always kind of been there, and they were shafted when their owner decided to go all franchise mode on them. But how good is it for the fans to come up with a nice generosity?
I mean, it's great, but it's one of those things where you think to yourself, this shouldn't be necessary. Actually, it was a Wimbledon fan who set that GoFundMe up. Okay. They did an interview with him, and he was like, "Oh, it's really great of Newcastle to give us money, but I hope we beat them." I was like, "Well, fuck you then." But I think that totals over 110 grand now, and I think the next sort of stake in the ground is 150. But I was reading just very briefly a headline. Someone was saying they're going to need like substantially more than 150 grand to sort out their problems.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they're going to get a gate share, 45%, I think it is, when they come up to St James's. Normally, I wouldn't expect a sold-out crowd for Wimbledon at home in a Carabao fourth round, is it? So what you were saying there before, it's great to see all the fans getting involved and stuff. If you see a full stadium on the next Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever it is, that'll be a really good sign of the fans pulling together. And I think you could probably
the early talk is that it's going to be close to a sellout. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see if it happens.
Yeah, I mean that's fantastic. Obviously, we don't know what it would have been under normal circumstances, but fourth round, Wimbledon, not going that great in the league.
It's not the glamour tie, no.
Yeah, it's one of those where you can imagine it wouldn't have been probably a sellout. But if the fans are getting their feet to the ground and bums on seats, money in the bank and stuff, and making sure Wimbledon get a really good pocket out of that, or purse out of that rather, then that'll be the good news story as well, I think.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. So if we do happen to get past Wimbledon, and given our recent form, I'm taking absolutely nothing for granted. The Carabao Cup draw for the next round has actually already happened. We at least got into the hat. We got into the hat, and the balls were obviously not cold enough to be detected. And we've actually ended up drawing a home game for the first time in God knows how long.
Two home
games in a row. Yeah. Who'd have thought? thought. The downside, of course, is it is Chelsea that we drew. Now that's going to be a hit or miss. Chelsea, I think they've put some really good performances in this season so far. They've also been a little bit slapdash at times, so it all depends on which Chelsea turn up. But they do seem to be at least starting to get to grips with their copious amount of players that they have at their disposal and finding a winning formula when it counts. But are you worried about them in the next round, or do you just hope that look we'll take what we get?
Well, yeah, I mean, they have clicked this season. I think obviously they were clicking towards the end of last season quite substantially and pushes out the European places as a result. They've got some good players. I mean, bloody hell, they've got some good players. And it's probably always a case that if someone could come in and get those good players playing together as a team rather than a bunch of individuals, then they would probably be flying. And you might be seeing a little bit of that right now. Christ, even Jackson's scoring goals, for God's sake. So, yes, absolutely concerned about it. It depends on which team they put out. They've got about 6 different first teams that could stick out. God knows who they're going to stick out. But I think anyone that they do put out will probably be given us a challenge. We'll obviously go balls in because we need to be able to get through this competition. We want to get to the final. We want to get into that European spot. I would have preferred an easier team, put it that way.
I think the one redeeming factor is it's sandwiched in between 2 of the European games or something for them, or at least they're playing like in Europe, coming back to play us, playing. They've got like 3 away games plus European football in and amongst us. So you like the hope is, and I know you don't want to get to a final having played nobody, and it kind of diminishes the meaningful victories if you do get them. But like for me, if they want to play their kids or play their reserves and they stumble, then I will take that with both hands.
Yeah, they've got Panathinaikos away. Then they've got us. Wait a minute, what's this for? 3 games on the bounce. They've got Panathinaikos, us, and then Man United. But that one against us is apparently at Chelsea, so I don't know what that's about. But
I think that's a league game.
Yeah.
So we're basically playing them in the league, and then we're playing them in the cup. So
awesome.
Yeah, great. But look, enough about the cup games. We'll deal with that next week. The big game on the horizon is the dreaded Man City. It is at St James's Park, though, so hope springs eternal. Look, Man City, never an easy game. One of the big talking points this week has not actually been about the game itself, though. And before we actually get to the game, I want to touch on this, get your opinion on what's happening, and we'll discuss it. Man City's challenge against the Associated Party transaction ruling that was essentially brought in to stop us getting Saudi sponsors. and it wasn't, but it definitely was. Yeah. We know it was. And so it also affected Man City. They were not able to then lavish themselves with some extra sponsor deals from their partners. The hearing was meant to be this week. This is completely different to the 115 charges or whatever they're up for in terms of breaking rules and premiership stuff. But the Associated Party transactions would essentially mean that they don't have to sort of jump through the hoops that the Premier League put in to try and make some stumbling blocks to even the field, to like make sure that nobody could challenge the established elite or the American red cartel, as it were. The ruling should be getting heard any moment now. We don't know. We haven't heard anything yet. I keep checking my messages because normally when we do these podcasts, it's we'll finish up and something's broken in the meantime and we miss it completely.
Every time.
Every time. How do you see? I mean, there's a lot of talk that this would be very beneficial for Newcastle. What's your thoughts on what's happening, and how do you see it actually going for us?
Well, I mean, it's impossible to know how this is going to go as far as the tribunal is concerned. It was actually heard in June, if I'm not mistaken, and this is kind of I assume the judgment is getting handed down. I assume this week. I think that's what's going on, but I could be slightly wrong there. It depends. It's a tricky one, obviously, because if City gets away with this, I'll say get away. If they win their case and the league has no leg to stand on as far as justifying money coming in from associated parties, then the rabbit's out the hat, cat's out the bag. Everybody's going to be able to do this, and then it's just going to come down to who can spend the most. If there's no upper limits, if the league cannot impose any kind of upper limit on associated party sponsorship, then it's an open checkbook.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, it's good in the sense that, well, if City can do it, so can we now. Therefore, we can make strides into leveling the playing field. It's going to take some time, obviously, because we're miles behind, but we have very wealthy owners. If they are able to spin up a company or just pick one of their random 1,000 companies that they've got and say, right, here's £1 billion for new ground sponsorship, maybe, and nobody's able to challenge that. Money bags, we can do whatever. Obviously, on the back of that, it's going to massively inflate prices across the board, and money. It's going to be money game. I mean, it already is, but it's like I don't know if we're prepared to know how this might be or how this might look if any club can get any kind of sponsorship input that they want from associated parties and do what they want. I don't know what that landscape is going to quite look like on the other side. So if they lose it, then we all play by the same rules and we all have these limits that we all have to stick to. And some mysterious group of people, I don't know who even decides if, I think it might be all the other teams, I'm not sure, but someone or some people have to decide what's a reasonable amount for a sponsorship. And obviously it's subjective as well. And there's always going to be a subjective element to that side of things. If we're going to go down that road, they get to decide. Everyone has to stick with it, and nobody can go above it. There's obviously other ways around it. You can get sponsored by 1,000 different companies instead of one. That gives you lots of money, I guess. But if they get rid of that, I do fear about what that's going to look like on the other side.
I think there's
just going to be about money.
I'm not the only fan that's kind of getting a little bit fed up. I mean, the amount of moving of goalposts since our takeover and the unfair kind of, the expectations that we were just going to, and we were just going to buy that title, and all of these like hurdles have been put in place for us, and all of these blocks have been put on all of the sponsor deals that I think the club was expecting to be able to do to increase their the club's revenue and their spending power and build the club like they wanted to. I don't think they were looking to go all in and completely bankrupt football, but I think they expected to be able to at least get to the point where they could challenge the big teams quite quickly, which was obviously put on hold. And there's plenty of fans, I think, at the moment are going, look, get Man City to win this case. Let's just go for it. Let's break football. Nobody gave a crap when they tried to break away for the ESL and start the Super League up, and they were going to have a closed shop there with all the money for themselves. So you know what? Let's just go for it. Screw everyone else.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more pragmatic. I want to see us close the gap, obviously, but it needs to be done in a way that doesn't break football. As you said, it's like if there's literally no restrictions, you go, right, well, we'll go out and we'll pay £600,000 a year for this player who's probably earning 120 at any other club in the world, just because we can. And then we're going to pay 130 million for this player just to kind of have a bit of a showboat and prove that we can get him or whatever. And everything's just going to get hiked up. And I don't want to see that either. I don't want to see us. And it is that situation where does that then diminish any success that we get because we've literally just gone stupid and overspent?
What I will say is these kind of arguments have been had before as well. Before these new laws came in. I mean, how many times have we said Man United bought the league in the late 90s and so on?
Yeah.
It's a story that, and almost Newcastle as well, actually. It's a story that kind of constantly comes up, and just going against what I was saying there about it to be a free for all with money. Well, was it a free for all before this new rule came in just after our takeover? Because obviously that rule wasn't there prior to the takeover. Was it a free for all there? Were people getting ridiculous sponsorship deals coming through? And was everyone up in arms? I don't remember that. So maybe I'm being overly.
I think the difference is that people people are basically seeing, right, well, you've got PIF who own Newcastle, PIF then own Airlines, and then Saudi Airlines basically sponsor Newcastle for 350,000, like 350 million or something like that for a 2-year stadium naming like deal, and everyone else is stuck with like a 30 million pound deal because they can only do it in the normal market. And I see that point, and I don't want us to do that. What I think would be the best case scenario is for us and probably for football is to meet in the middle ground. I want to see the associated party transaction rules thrown out, but with new rules brought in to say that you can get associated party deals, but only up to the maximum of whatever is currently in the league. And that levels the playing field, so they can't go and just go, right, well, Man United's just signed an 80 million, 90 million a year sponsor deal for their shirt sponsor. We're going to pay 200 million, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. No one wants to see that, but if Man United are getting that, then we should be able to say, well, look, we're going to get like a 70, 80, 90 million, like up to whatever they're kind of getting with performance deals. Like if you get to Champions League, then you get that extra 20 million on top of it to hit that 90 million or something like that. That to me would be a nice common ground where it's going to let us do what we want to do. It's going to prove that the rules are not right, and they're not sort of like really, they are anti-competitive, and I think we've all known that. But it's not going to completely break football in general.
So how would that work then? So like, if Man City gets like a billion quid associated party sponsorship, are you saying then everyone else in the league is allowed to get a billion pound sponsorship from associated parties as well?
I would say that whatever is currently on market value, so they can't go above whatever the maximum in the league is at this moment. So Man City can kind of go, right, well, we can, because remember that the issue here is not about the money that's involved, it's about who they're getting that money from.
Sure, but it
So
kind of
it's
is about the
about
money though.
it's about the money, but it's about where they're getting the money from. It's about where are
But
they
it's
getting it from Adidas, or are they getting it from one of their own companies that just is basically a shell company to give them funding? So the idea would be that, well, if everyone else has to go through normal channels and they can only secure 60 million a year or 70 million a year or whatever, then that should be the cap, but you can pay it for yourself from your own companies. You can go to your own companies to get that sponsorship deal, but you break current market value.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it is about where the money's coming from. I think it's where it's going. That is the issue for the league. If you want to have the red cartel kind of thing floating around, or the top six kind of protected, favored teams, and then you get someone like Newcastle coming along and getting, imagining we got untold, unfettered, unrestricted money coming from Saudi Arabia, and then suddenly Newcastle is blowing everybody out of the water and buying their way to the top of the table. Everyone in the top six is going to be like, well, this is shit. We're going to do a Super League instead, and Newcastle's not going to be invited. So, and then Premier League loses out on its entire USP, which is having all these internationally well-supported teams and bringing in all the money and all the rest of it. So I think it's got, if nothing else, it's got as much as to do with where the money is going, like who is going to,
Yeah.
as where it's coming from. I don't think they're taking a stand and saying, "Oh, we don't like PIF because the Saudis and Saudis chop
No,
people's
no,
heads
no.
off."
It's
I don't think that's
100% the
at all
teams
got
that
anything
are
to do with
actually
it.
getting it. They don't like
Sure.
the teams that are actually going to be benefiting from this. But that's what I'm saying is that if you could work it to a point where you're not getting an unfair advantage over those teams, like you're not getting something that they can't get themselves, then it creates a more of an even playing field, so that, well, everyone's kind of, yeah, okay, look, there's plenty of clubs in the league that never going to be able to compete with that, and that's a shame. It's not competitive for those teams anymore. But at the same time, you've got you've got a much more even playing field if the likes of Newcastle and Aston Villa and maybe West Ham or whoever else is up there, if they can kind of at least get to that point of, well, we can now spend to, it's to me, it's about keeping your players. It's about that PSR nonsense whereby we've got to sell players to keep under this imaginary cap that they've made out of nowhere, that well, hang on, but how does that encourage us to try and be competitive? It doesn't. And the same as Villa. Villa had to sell
Yeah,
players
but
to save themselves.
the top six team don't want us to be competitive. They just want
No,
to
they
have
don't. They
their
don't.
cushy situation. They want to get the vast majority of the money. And this Super League thing, in many ways, it was a pretty clever idea in that even though, and they might have expected and planned for the fact that it got shot down, it never went away. It still sits there.
Still,
The
it's
fact
still
that
there.
things
I
are,
guarantee you, they're still waiting, and it'll be a case. And I think you're right, where it'll be a case of throwing the toys out the pram if they don't get their own way,
well,
and
yeah,
they've got that hanging over the Premier League at the moment, and
and
all the other leagues as well. Like Barcelona and Real Madrid, we're going to go to it.
and you can see the influence of it kind of rippling through some other competitions. Like the Champions League has changed
Yeah,
uh, soon after the whole debacle came about. I mean, a year or two afterwards, it changes. You've got that ridiculous situation of the League Cup last round, where they
last
had the European teams getting this kind of bye, almost like they were getting home picked, um,
and they couldn't play each
automatically,
other, and yeah,
and they got to buy that week as well. It was like they got to buy on the round three, so it's like you can see the ripples, the undulations, the kind of impact of the threat that kind of hangs over the Premier League and others for these teams to say, look, do what we want. We don't care about competition, really. No, we don't want Newcastle coming in here and nudging one of us out. Sod that. No. It's about
yeah.
us. And it's about Barcelona, Real Madrid, PSG, and whoever else was going to get involved in it. Bayern Munich, maybe. And
I thought
and
PSG
that's it.
abstained. I think they didn't want to go
Oh,
into
who
it.
knows, man? Christ. You know what I mean? But it's the big teams, the popular
Yeah,
teams, the ones with
yeah.
the massive crowds, the one who can bring in the money, which
The
is the
ones that
point.
have been overspending to keep themselves at the top need more money now, and they don't want anyone else to take it away from them because they're going to be in financial crap if they ever miss out on Europe for too long.
Well, absolutely. And
That's
so
the top and bottom of it. Let's be fair.
looping this all back around, the restrictions on how much money we could spend was in many ways to stop us from threatening that kind of the cartel, if you like, of that nice cushy situation we've got.
Yeah.
So if that limit is removed, it's anyone's game. And then where does it end? What happens? What are the prices going to be? It's going to be bloody interesting, put it that way. But I don't know what that landscape's going to look like. It's going to be sort of uncharted ground in some ways.
Yeah, indeed. But anyway, look, that's probably another discussion for the same topic once we hear the ruling.
That's that solved. We've done it.
Let's head on to the actual match at the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So a quick shout out. There are some meetups around Australia for this game because it is the lunchtime kickoff. So it's a 12:30 kickoff in the UK, which means it is 9:30 here in Brisbane. It's actually a sensible time. We can watch it and then go to bed and not feel like we've been on the
After the grand final.
razzle for 15 weeks or something and wake up with chopsticks holding our eyes open. Look, it'll be good. I think there's about 25, 30 people going to the Brisbane meetup at the Pig and Whistle on Eagle Street. So if you are in Brisbane, get along to that one. Have a look on Facebook. Look for the Brisbane Geordie page. Sign up and come along and say hello. I will not be able to go along to this one because I am still with Moonboot, and I don't fancy crutches, Moonboot, and a load of alcohol watching a Newcastle game ending quite favourably for me. So I'm going to sit this one out, unfortunately. But there are quite a few going. I know there's a few going down to the Gold Coast one as well, and there are meetups in Sydney and Melbourne. I think the Sydney one's shifted to a new venue, so head on to Aussie Mags. They've got all of the details for all of the meetups, so that'll be good, and it'll be interesting because Man City is not typically a side that we're likely to win against, and our record in the early kickoffs is abysmal at best.
We always
So
pick these bad games, don't we?
we always end up with
Yeah.
bad games for the early
never fun.
kickoffs. The one redeeming factor, Rodri has done well. I mean, I don't want to like sort of laugh at players' misfortunes. It is a bad injury. He's done his tendon in his knee. No major details about how long he's going to be out for or whether or not it's like a full knee reconstruction needed. But he is definitely going to be out for this game. So that's one real plus point for Newcastle. How big a loss do you think Rodri's going to be for Man City?
Oh, he's only one of the best midfielders in the entire planet. But I mean, with City, they've obviously got a fair amount of talent in that squad, of course. But then, of course, De Bruyne's also out of this game, so
Yeah,
they're gonna have to find somebody else from their ridiculous pool talent. I'm sure they'll be fine. Honestly,
yeah.
I don't think I'll be losing any sleep over what Man City's going to do in the midfield. Um, does it give us an edge? I don't think so. I mean, we've got so many things going on with ourselves that
Yeah.
I think we need to just concentrate on sorting that shit out, don't we?
Indeed, yeah. The form, sort of one of the points I've got written down to discuss is our form has been pretty awful.
Right.
The results have been going for us, but as Keegan and Jack did a pod on the other day, it's not been as good as it was last season, and I think they covered it where they basically summed it up really nicely. Where last season we were playing well and just not getting the results. So the results weren't going our way, but the whole XG thing was showing that we were creating chances, we were playing well, and we were saying, look, we're going to absolutely hammer someone, and eventually we did. This season, it has not been good watching. We have been probably
Horrible.
the least fluid we've ever been under Eddie Howe. We've looked lethargic. We've looked behind the pace of the game. Our passing's been atrocious. We keep giving the ball away. We keep getting caught in possession. We don't seem to have any intensity with the game, and we kind of seem to be limiting our decent amount of football to 30-minute bursts here and there, which just isn't good enough, especially when you're coming up against a team like Man City. What's your thoughts on? Obviously, we want to hope that we can find a way to push things in the right direction and try to get some form regained. This is not the game that you want to do it in, but hope is a week off going to have helped us, or is the kind of late call off of the Wimbledon game probably not actually giving us any more time to prep for this?
Did we travel down to Wimbledon? I can't remember.
If it was called off that late, you would imagine we would have.
I haven't seen anything about that. I mean, obviously, if we have, that's not great prep at all. In many ways, that Wimbledon postponement kind of robbed us of the chance to get a little bit of,
Yeah,
like get a good result, even
an
if it is
extra
against
game under our
Wimbledon, and
belt.
just
Yeah,
kind of get the ball rolling again. It's hard to know what's going on with this team right now. There's that many different things that you could point to and say it could be that Mandy leaving, it could be that Gordon at the Euros didn't play very much. Could be that Gordon trying to get flogged behind his back to at Liverpool. Could be that Gordon's best mate Ando actually getting flogged to Brighton when he wasn't even back in the country. He
Forest.
couldn't even say goodbye, so he was flogged off. Barnes maybe starting to take his place. I don't think that's an issue, but it's possible. You've got Trips who wants away because of all the things that are going on. You've got a formation that seems to have been well and truly sussed by
Yeah,
now, and I think that's honestly, I think this has got as much to do with it as anything. That midfield killer pass that is just leaving us stranded as we're a little bit too high up. It's either tactics, formation, or the pair of them. I don't know. But if you look at that 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-2-1, whatever it was in the second half against Fulham, we were miles better. But
yeah,
at the same time, Fulham was sitting back deep and giving us the ball. They were kind of doing the Spurs,
yeah.
like what we did to Spurs. Like, you're never going to score. Here's the ball. Good luck to you. We're still going to win, and they did. And the not having a game midweek, well, it didn't help us against Fulham. We were
No.
shit. We're utterly shit.
And I think that's the big thing, isn't it? Last season, we were saying it's like, oh, we'll give Eddie Howe some slack because we're playing weekend, midweek. He's not getting the time to
Hmm.
to train with the players. He's not getting time to work on stuff on the training pitch.
Getting it now.
He's always traveling. He's getting it this season, and
Got too much.
it's getting more than ever, and it's just not showing any dividends.
Got too much time and not enough injuries.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what's. Like probably everybody, we've got our suspicions, but and it could be all of them in one way or another, all feeding into this kind of malaise that we're going through at the minute. Who knows? Who knows? But we've got to find a way through it.
Here's one question for you. If you look at the way we're playing, we look like we're trying to play a more possession-based game, but we don't have the skills to actually pull it off.
Yeah.
We're not playing that high-intensity pressing game anymore. That did us
Yep.
like sort of a lot of credit when we pulled that off. How much do you think that we've moved away from that high-intensity game on the back of all the injuries from last season?
Well, it's no longer our identity. I hope they took that sign down
Definitely not.
in the bloody changing room, because it's like it's a fucking lie, isn't it? It's just sitting there going, "Yeah, no, that's not true."
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's something that Eddie's worked on to try and make us a little bit more um, unpredictable. We are definitely not running around like lunatics, but could it also be that we got so many injuries last season that they said, like, you cannot, this is not sustainable. You
yeah,
can't go run around like this too much. You're gonna kill everybody on the pitch. And he's had to, as a consequence, change it somewhat. I don't know. Maybe you could. It's a good guess as any.
yeah,
But the intensity chasing around, it's obviously gone. It can kind of, it almost, we did a little bit of it against Fulham when Shaw should have cut it square to Isak. That was under pressure that was putting the keeper under pressure.
yeah.
So we can do it at times, and it can still work at times, but I imagine that it can't be us all the time anymore.
No,
And also, to be fair, it was out of necessity a lot as well. When Eddie first came in, we had to get everybody riveting up. They had to get them all pumped. You had to get them all chasing down. They had to get them believing in the cause. And one way you do that, I suppose, is like you say, right, you lot run like fuck, close down the ball, just run around, close them down, make them have mistakes, get in behind them, do what you do. And it worked. It absolutely worked. But I suspect that because it's been found out too much, and that midfield's getting overrun too easy and getting cut up, that we have had to change. And like I said, maybe the injuries as well. Maybe, I mean, we can't go through another season with 14
no.
fucking injuries, man. It's ridiculous.
But to be honest, though, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing on the pitch at the moment could also be explained by very key personnel having been away on international duty, having come back late. We had a pretty arduous sort of preseason and postseason
Yeah.
tours. There's probably a lot of sort of mileage in the
It's,
legs of the
but
players
it's,
without really working on match fitness
but,
and sharpness.
yeah, but
They
that's not
just
you.
look off their
But
sharpness.
that's not unique to us, though, is it?
No,
And other teams
but
don't look
maybe it
shite
is
like
for the
this.
players that we have. They're not used to it. Other teams are.
I mean, that's another thing you can shove into the mix of all these things that might be all coalescing together at exactly the wrong time, like as in the same time. Um, take your pick. Honestly, stick your hand in a hat and pull out an answer, because it could be any of these things. The difficulty for Eddie Howe is he has to know how to fix it, and how the hell's he going to fix it?
Well, that's the thing. I think his comments post Fulham were pretty damning, to be honest. Where he's admitting he didn't quite get it right in terms of personnel. He thought these sorts of players should come in, like Willock. I think he singled out and said, he played really well. He's back fit. I wanted to put him in. Had a really off game, hardly touched the ball, didn't have his drive from midfield. Maybe he's kind of holding back a little bit because he's worried about re-injuring himself, and he's not
Yeah,
doing that usual sort of power from midfield runs and stuff. We don't know. All we can say is we've got a decent looking squad with decent looking depth at the moment. Um, I think the one thing that everyone is in agreement of is Sandro Tonali has to start for us against Manchester City.
yeah,
And if we don't and we get overrun in midfield, then I think Eddie Howe, rightly so, will get some very awkward questions directed his way.
yeah, maybe.
What's your tip for who do you want to see as your starting team
All
against
right.
City?
So, and just before that, the things like the idea of playing Willock and who else did he start? Did he start Murphy? I forget. These guys
No.
played really well the game before, so I was actually quite happy to see these coming in, because it's always meant to be about, if you play well, you get into the team. And Barnes started, and Gordon's on the other side, and I was like, right, this seems all right, but it just didn't work, and I don't know
No.
if that's, we've discussed that anyway. I mean, I think probably midfield up picks itself, but it's the defense where I think is probably the most question marks. So obviously it'll be Poby in goal. Then I would want to see the experience of Trips on this one, so I'll probably have him at left back. But there's other ways you can do this. But I would have Kelly and Shaw in the middle, and Tino on the right. Obviously that's pretty harsh on Burn, and we might lose out on a bit of height in there. But if we lose just because of height, then we've done something else pretty well in that case, because I mean, that means we haven't lost on skill, which will be nice. So I think probably Trips, Kelly, Shaw, Tino, but it could easily be Hall, doing Burn, Shaw, Trips, Tino. Take your pick. But I think I want that experience of Trips. I want Tino with his running. and I want Shaw for his blamos, and Kelly just because he's looked all right, actually. Kelly,
He has actually looked okay. He's still finding his feet, but look, I mean, he's 6'3", so he's not exactly coming in
yeah.
as like a short ass in defence.
But the thing about Kelly is he's got a lot of experience. He's played like nearly
Yeah, yeah.
200 games for Bournemouth, so he should have a fairly wherewithal about him. So that would be what I would go at the back, and then obviously Joe, Tonali, Bruno in the middle, Barnes, Gordon on the wings, and Isaac up front. But you might stick Murphy down there. You might stick Gordon on the left because Gordon on the right hasn't really worked. But Barnes is banging him in. So do you really want to drop Barnes when he's the only one who's on the wings who's picking up these goals?
Yeah,
Probably not.
Barnes for me is one of these weird situations where he looks like he's this ideal super sub.
Yeah, you've said this.
He
Yeah,
doesn't ever
yeah.
seem to do it if he's on
If
from
he
the
starts,
start, but when he comes off the bench, he's running at tired defenders and he gets more time on the ball, he gets
yeah,
more chances to cut in into midfield and smash them into the top corner.
yeah, true.
He just doesn't seem to be able to do it from the start, but
Mm.
when he's scoring goals the way he does when he comes off the bench, you kind of feel it's hard not to then give him a start because he's
Yeah,
justified getting that start.
yeah, no, exactly. I've always liked Barnes. Like I thought he was terrific at Leicester.
Yeah.
I was really happy when we signed him, just as I was when we signed Gordon, because you could see how good he was at Everton. The thing that limits Barnes really is that he kind of has that one trick down the left, doesn't he? Where he runs down the wing and then he cuts inside and looks for that shot across the goal.
Yeah.
It's pretty predictable. I wonder if that's why he gets nowhere. Like he'll try harder because he's fitter at the start. He gets completely, boxed in by decent fullbacks. Runs out of steam, runs out of ideas, and then you hook him. Whereas if he comes on sometime in the second half, 60th minute, he's run faster. People with his fresh legs, they've had someone else to have to deal with. Now they're doing something else.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how he has that more impact. Who knows? So yeah, I mean, it could be Golden left, it could be Murphy right. We haven't even seen Miggy this season. God knows what's
No.
going on with him. And
No.
he's been on the bench every time, I think. So yeah, but in Bruno, I think Bruno needs to pick it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if this captain's armband's kind of weighing on him a little
I was
bit,
going to ask you about that
or
because
what.
he looks to me like he's trying to be everywhere at once and do everything and feels like he has to lead by example as
Yeah,
opposed to just play his normal game and gee the crowd up and cheer when he goes through someone with a tackle as he
does it
usually
too.
does.
Yeah,
We don't need him to try to do everything. That's not his job. And it feels like he's kind of getting caught out of position or getting caught on the ball because he's trying to do too much, maybe.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you saw that against Fulham. That was him. Very, very. I mean, he was almost at the bloody goal line. He
Mm.
was so deep. It was ridiculous. Really, he shouldn't have. Well, no. I mean, you can understand him being there. He's trying to help out. It's the end of the game. He's looking to try and get that equalizer in the last few minutes, and then just totally brain fart it and completely shafts us. But everyone's allowed a mistake. I'm not going to hold it against him. I do think probably that he is trying too hard. Um, but I love that about him. I don't, I don't,
Yeah,
I don't,
it's
I don't
hard. I
dislike that.
understand. Yeah, it's hard to find a problem with a player who cares so deeply about wanting to do well for the club. I
Yeah.
fully get
He's
that.
the people you want.
Yeah,
You can afford someone like that a mistake. I think
yeah.
we can let him off on that one. He's done
Oh,
such
I've no
good
problem with
stuff.
him making a mistake. Look, it happens. I mean,
Yeah,
last season Trippier made a few we're aware of. I still think he's an absolute class player for us.
oh,
The issue I think though is it's maybe detracting a little bit more away from Bruno's natural game, where he's not in the right
mm,
positions where he normally should be,
mm,
and that's maybe having a knock on effect where Joe Linton's having to do more and losing the ball. Longstaff looks a shadow of himself from previous seasons under Howe. So it's I think it's just this knock on effect where there's so many players who are either not quite up to standard, or maybe their heads have dropped, or they're out of confidence, they're out of form, but it's all kind of like affecting each other because if there's one of them out of form, you kind of keep them in the side and you play them until they get form again because everyone else is carrying them. We have nobody to carry us at the moment. Nobody's in good form.
yeah,
Isaac's kind of like completely isolated up front on his own. He's getting no service,
yeah. Running
and we
around too
kind of
much.
and we just seem bereft of ideas some of the time. So look, hopefully we'll at least sort of put a good shift in. It is City. Hopefully the players are up for it to show what they're about. That could also be the case where they figured they were going to go and get a result at Fulham no matter what, and they didn't quite sort of execute the game plan that they really wanted to. Hopefully they'll be all a little bit more switched on against Man City. We'll call it there, but before we go, let's have a score prediction from yourself.
Oh God. Friggin' hell. It could be anything, couldn't it, really? I think we'll be playing deep. I don't think we're going to do very much at all. We'll probably lose 3-0.
Yeah, I'm going 3-1 loss.
Who's getting the one?
I think we'll score. It'll all depend on who comes off the bench. I actually fancy Murphy to get one.
Yeah, okay. He had a good preseason.
Yeah.
He hasn't really done it so far, but yeah.
No, I figure we'll get one, but I don't think we'll win the game. So we'll see. Hope springs eternal, as we keep saying. But thanks for everyone for watching and listening. As I said before, drop in and say hello on our Telegram chat. QR code's up on the top corner. And then we'll kick that off big time during the match and have a chat to everyone as the game is unfolding. Hopefully not with too much depressing news of plenty of goals flying in at the wrong end. So thanks very much, Lee. Appreciate your time, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Yeah, thanks everyone.